Hey guys, Icy here. In this video I want to talk about why you should be wearing heavy armor as a PvP healer. We're going to talk about resistances, armor bonuses, passives. Timestamps will be in the description below. So as a PvP healer, you bring no value being dead on the battlefield. You need to be able to survive on your own by giving yourself as much damage mitigation as possible, and this can be broken up into two forms: passive and active damage mitigation. So by active damage mitigation, I'm talking about damage shields like Shimmering Shield to help you block or absorb incoming projectiles, roll dodging, certain abilities to avoid damage, holding down block to reduce incoming damage by a lot, line of sighting, which just means utilizing your terrain to avoid damage so you cannot be targeted, and also by simply playing smart. If you see something bad on the ground, don't walk into it. By passive damage mitigation, I'm talking about your flat physical and spell resistances, and also actual flat damage mitigation that comes from buffs like minor and major protection. Now for resistances, I'm going to be using ESO Builder's Help for this. I'm using an Imperial DK with the Mundus Stone, the Ritual. CP is disabled. I'm using a 7-piece Shackle Breaker setup in all heavy. I do have 3 versions of this, one in heavy, 7-piece medium, and 7-piece light. I do have the Sword and Board disabled, as well as the DK's Draconic Power Scaled Armor passive disabled. And for buffs, I have everything disabled except for the Major Resolve, because Major Resolve is standard in PvP. Now, if we're just comparing the resistances alone, on heavy armor, we're looking at 23k on both physical and spell. And then if we go to medium armor, we're looking at 17k on both. And then on light armor, we are looking at 13k on both. This is 18k because if you look at the light armor's spell warding passive, we are getting an additional 5k spell resistance. Now, just between those two, right, 23k physical resistance and 13k physical resistance, if you put this character in a situation where they're being ganked by a Nightblade and they get ambushed, they get incapped, followed by some execute, in a light armor setup, they're most likely going to die. If not, they're going to be in a worse position because they're going to be well within execute range, and it's going to be a lot harder for them to recover and get back into the fight. If they were being ganked in a heavy armor setup, it's not as bad but still dangerous, but when they do get fully bursted, you're more likely going to survive because that upfront burst damage isn't as much compared to being in light armor. And you don't want to sell yourself short in those moments because you have less resistances, regardless of what the light armor bonuses give you and the light armor passives give you. So for the heavy armor passives, the first one is Resolve, increases your physical and spell resistance. This is great because it makes us more tanky on both of our resistances, not just one of them. Next is Constitution, increases your health recovery and you restore magicka and stamina when you take damage. Health recovery did get a nerf in PvP by 50%, but any health recovery is good recovery. And the second passive is fantastic because when people realize you're the PvP healer, you will get focused, so having another source of resource sustain is always a benefit. In PvE, you never have to really worry about taking damage because you have a tank that will pull aggro from the trash mobs and the boss. In PvP, you don't have that same luxury. Juggernaut increases your max health. Simply put, it just makes you more tanky, which is always great. Revitalize increases the magicka or stamina your heavy attacks restore. In all of my videos, you will always see me heavy attacking for 2 reasons. One is for resource sustain. The Revitalize passive combined with the Resto Staff's Cycle of Life passive is going to give you massive resource return to your magicka. And the second reason is because of the Restoration Staff's Essence of Drain, which will proc Major Mending, boosting your heals by 16%. And last is Rapid Mending, which increases your healing received. This will boost any heals that affect you, whether they come from yourself or from your allies. Now, as a PvP healer, I'd give the heavy armor passives a 5 out of 5 because all 5 of the passives bring immense value and help you do your job effectively as a healer in PvP. For the medium armor passives, the first one is Dexterity, which increases your crit damage and crit healing. This is nice, but there are really no good medium armor support sets unless you're talking about Grizzly Gourmet, but that doesn't even have crit on it. And then you could run something like a Selfish set like Leviathan to make use of the Dexterity passives. At that point, you'd be giving up 5k resistances alone by not running heavy armor. Windwalker increases your stamina recovery and reduces the cost of your stamina abilities. This is nice, but I don't usually run stamina based abilities except for defensive posture, and even when I do, I use it only as a slottable passive. If I was going to make a stamina based PvP healer, it would certainly be a Redguard or a Wood Elf healer to help with stamina sustain while wearing wearing heavy armor. Improve sneak, reduce sneak cost and sneak detection size. This doesn't really bring value for PvP healers unless you're doing something weird like a Nightblade healer in an all Nightblade group in Cyrodiil. Agility increases your weapon and spell damage. This will straight up boost your healing output. Athletics increases your movement speed bonus of sprint and reduce the cost of roll dodge. If you're using snow treaders, then half of this passive loses value, and since we are a block centric build, roll dodging is not really useful except in moments where we do need to roll dodge out of a Colossus or Elemental Rage ultimate. So as a PvP healer, I'd give the medium armor passives a 2 out of 5 because the only good bonuses we benefit from are dexterity and agility. The other passives are very niche and not really too valuable. Now for the light armor passives, we have Grace, reduce the effectiveness of snares and reduce the cost of sprint. There are a lot of snares in PvP, so this does bring value, but we're not really sprinting too much, and especially if we're running snow treaders, then this whole passive is useless. Evocation increases your magic recovery and reduce the cost of magic abilities. This passive is fantastic since all of our abilities are magic based. Spell warding, increase your spell resistance. This is nice when fighting against Magicka users, but we don't want to be one-sided on our resistances since we are already lacking in the physical. Prodigy, increase your weapon and spell crit. Similar to the dexterity passive on medium armor, we'd really have to invest in crit chance to make better use of this passive, and even then, we'd still be giving up 10k resistances compared to wearing heavy armor. And the last one is concentration, increase your physical and spell penetration. All of our abilities tend to not do damage, so this brings no value to us, and even in the moments where our abilities do damage, we're not spec'd or built for it, so it's still worthless. So as a PvP healer, I'd give the light armor passives a 2.5 out of 5. Evocation is the only good thing coming out of light armor. Everything else gets a half rating because it brings some value, and the concentration passive is irrelevant. So for a quick review on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being awesome, heavy armor gets a 5 out of 5, medium armor gets a 2 out of 5, and light armor gets a 2.5 out of 5. Now for the armor bonuses, I'm not going to go over all the passives, just the ones I think are relevant for PvP healing. For heavy armor bonuses, we have an increase in the amount of damage blocked. Since we are block focused with our 7 sturdy pieces, this works out really well. Next is reduce damage taken while immune to crowd control. CCs are abundant in PvP, so having that extra damage mitigation after you break free is a really nice bonus. For the penalties, increase the damage taken by magical attacks. You really feel this when fighting against Sorks, but it's a non-issue when I'm on my Templar, Necro, and Warden because they have cleanses in their class kits to remove the Endless Furies and Haunting Curses. The Warden especially because of the Shimmering Shield, which can negate their projectiles entirely, making this penalty a non-issue. And lastly, increase the cost of roll dodge. I only roll dodge when a Colossus or Elemental Rage ultimate is dumped on me, otherwise I try to never really roll dodge because it is very costly with this particular penalty. For medium armor, there are no penalties, and the biggest bonus that we really utilize is the block cost reduction. On my builds, I am always running 2 pieces of medium armor, which will give me 6% block cost reduction, which synergizes really well with my playstyle. For the light armor bonuses, the reduction in break free would be really nice to have with the abundant amount of CCs in PvP. And for the penalties, increase the damage taken from martial attacks. So if you remember from earlier, your physical resistances in an all light armor setup was 13k. You're now adding on top of that a self-induced mono-vulnerability to any physical ability that hits you, which you can also think of it as you're amplifying your opponent's physical damage against you by 5%, so you're going to get blown up. The other penalty is increasing the cost of block, which in an all sturdy setup, your traits will cancel that out without any issues, but like I said earlier, you're already so squishy that you don't need more negative handicaps that are self-inflicted. Now with all that said, I really hope I discouraged you guys from running light armor sets. You can run them on your weapons and jewelry, just not on your body. The heavy armor natural resistances, bonuses, and armor passives bring way more value for a PvP healer when it comes to survivability and doing your job well to support your team. And I do recommend running 2 medium pieces for your helmet and shoulders, so be sure to pick up that agility passive to help boost your healing. Alright, and that is the end of the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below if you agree or disagree, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.